words upon my tongue.
You will never be the same.
And with the full catastrophe, he didn't mean it was all bad.
God that I worship has a way of saying, don't play with me.
I invite you to the dance with the Lord of the dance.
God didn't call America to do what she's doing in the world now.
Please dance.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back to Untitled. I'm Pastor Tim.
I'm Pastor Mallory.
From ULC Fort Wayne, and joining us as always.
I'm Pastor Don from Unfinished Community, way out wild Kobe, Japan. Trust me, it's not just beef anymore.
But yeah, as I said, welcome back to Untitled, our kind of joint venture in the wild lands that are the YouTubes and the podcasting space. We're so glad to be back. We took a little break, had a couple of weeks off, but so glad to be back here and producing some more content. So glad to see you again.
Yeah.
Feels like
it's you guys too.
Forever. Yeah, and we only go like a couple weeks between these at most, and just like it feels like we haven't seen you in forever.
I know, I grew a beard, shaved a beard, shaved my head, grew more hair. I grew wings at one point,
Oh, I missed the wings.
I saw it on Instagram.
No, right? And I'm not telling you whether it came with a halo or horns.
Dang it.
I think we know the answer.
We do with that. I'm an ordained reverend. It was clearly horns.
Exactly.
Of course. But before we go any further away from what we're trying to do, we just want to kind of take some time, dig into the Bible, kind of break down some of what's written, I guess, with context and, almost like that's important or something.
Yeah, understanding the Bible is maybe a thing we should do instead of just memorizing random proof texts out of it and throwing them at people like they're shuriken made out of Bible.
That's crazy.
It kind of sounds made up, though.
Yeah.
Anyway.
That's what you're signing on for this YouTube video.
Yeah. You watch this far, you may as well watch the rest of it at this point.
Exactly, right?
5 minutes in, not even.
Well, I said I haven't seen you in a long time, but Mal wasn't even here for the last 2 videos?
She thinks so highly of us.
Yeah, I know.
I had tetanus, not really. I got my
You got your tetanus booster.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
But
we record them both at the same time, so she was missing for one recording, but 2 episodes.
yes, one recording, 2 weeks of videos.
It was not as big of a miss as you say.
But I will bring us back in, I promise. This week, we're kind of crack back open into Luke. We've kind of been focusing in there kind of for the majority of this series so far. So it's been interesting.
We've been kind of on a roll. The lectionary has been feeding us passages from Luke, as it tends to. And the end result of that has been feeding us good passages, one right after the other. So we decided pretty much to just stay the course.
Yeah.
And personally, I think that is a good thing. So
I think
today we are going to dive into one of those Sunday school story time texts that I'm guessing you gave a second thought to.
Yeah.
This comes from the Gospel according to Mark. No, I'm just kidding. It's from Luke.
Dang it! I read the wrong one.
Tricked us.
No.
Well, we'll be quiet.
Mark is actually my favorite of the Gospels. I prefer that one. I'll give you Luke because I know that's where we're at.
Don't tell my brother that Mark's your favorite.
No. Don't do that.
Not a Mark fan?
Well, I mean, my brother's name is Mark.
Oh, well, you see, that would have been useful information for the joke.
I thought I told you that.
No, you never told me that.
Oh, well, now you know. Knowing this happened.
Now I have learned that information in the most awkward way possible. Let's read the Bible.
Let's do it.
So we're working from the Gospel according to Luke chapter 17, verses 11 through 19. Jesus cleanses 10 men with a skin disease.
Woo!
Dermatologist Jesus on the case.
Dr. Jesus, MD?
Miracle doctor?
Exactly.
We'll go with it. We'll work with it.
Yeah, we'll take it.
All right, let's get started. On the way to Jerusalem, Jesus was going through the region between Samaria and Galilee. As he entered a village, 10 men with a skin disease approached him. Keeping their distance, they called out, saying, "Jesus, Master, have mercy on us." When he saw them, he said to them, "Go and show yourselves to the priest." And as they went, they were made clean. Then one of them, when he saw that he was healed, turned back, praising God with a loud voice. He prostrated himself. Every time. I apologize.
Very
He
big difference.
prostrated himself, I hate English, at Jesus' feet and thanked him. And he was a Samaritan. Then Jesus asked, were not 10 made clean? So where are the other 9? Did none of them return to give glory to God except this foreigner? Then he said to him, get up and go on your way. Your faith has made you well. This is the word of the Lord for the people of God. Thanks.
Right. And scene.
So, yeah, Sunday school level text here. Like,
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
this is one that often comes up because it's considered just inoffensively miraculous.
Right.
Right.
Excuse me. So, before I dive into taking it apart, which, I don't have a lot to say about it, but there are some points we tend to skip past.
Yeah.
I want to knock it over to you to be my T-ball T and throw me
Set it up for you.
some questions you have. How have you seen this one played at in your evangelical circles? Who has beat people over the head with this one like a baseball bat?
I mean, who hasn't beat people over the head with this one like a baseball bat?
You said you didn't even remember this one.
Well, and then I did because it was a repressed memory.
Oh, okay.
Let's take a minute.
I'm going to blow your mind again, as I so often do with our experiences
Oh, I'm
within
looking
the
forward to it.
denominational evangelical church. This one was used to basically tell us that we weren't being thankful enough for the things that God was giving us.
Yep.
And it was used as he was a Samaritan. He wasn't even from Galilee, and he knew well enough to thank God that no matter what was going on, that he was being
Even
blessed.
the dirty foreigners know their place.
Right, and that's the thing.
It's
And I was like,
exactly what it
God.
And I'm 10, sitting on the floor, playing with a Power Rangers action figure, and it's, okay, like, foreigners are bad, got it.
Yep, basically. The exact same thing for
Lord.
me.
Like, I know I'm not going to have time to do a more detailed edit, but there's a part of me that really just wants to cut the video feed right now and just replace it for a minute with the Picard facepalm.
Yeah,
It's
right?
just the big picture, and that's all you need.
Like, it needs to be a thing. Yeah, no, I don't think I have to go too far afield to say it's obviously not that.
What? Mind blown.
Crazy.
Yeah.
10-year-old me would have really appreciated hearing that.
I don't know if you notice this, but this does actually play well to one of the deeper theological points I like to talk about with this one. How many people were made well in this story? Like, by the time you get to the end of the story, how many people were made well?
By the end of it, it sounds like only one.
They were all made clean, but only one was made well.
Correct.
You're reaching. Look at the
Well-
actual text. Does it ever say that the 10 or the 9 who didn't come back were not well?
No.
Fair? No, it doesn't.
No. All it says is, let's see, go and as they went, they were made clean.
Yeah.
That's it. Like, there's no mention of them presenting themselves to the priest and saying, all right, I'm going to go back and hang out with my wife again, and then suddenly their skin starts falling off like it's an Indiana Jones movie. Like, that's not in the text. And this is the fun part when we're talking about the evangelical twisting of texts. It often implies things in the text that are not explicit in the text. So if you take this as a story of the one who came back was by far the only one faithful, and therefore the only one deserving of healing, then you can make the jump to, well, then therefore he must have been the only one healed.
Right.
But, and this is going to be my large refrain with a lot of these evangelical interpretations, it's not in the text.
It's true, it's not.
And yet they love to scream about their biblical literalism.
Exactly. And this is a huge thing for me, is because we love in the church to bandy about words like grace and mercy. But those are universalist terms. Like, mercy isn't mercy. Grace isn't grace if you're only giving it to the people who praise you in exchange.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so to deny the healing of the other 9 is to deny the grace of Jesus Christ, which
Yeah.
I don't want to throw around the heresy word here, but kind
Right.
of seems like it's one of those things.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. And
And
it's like in the evangelical church, it feels like grace and mercy is only extended to the people we like.
It
Yeah.
is. It's only extended to the people that are in that congregation doing what they're supposed to do.
Right. Who's following the rules?
Yeah.
Who's meeting the expectations? And
Correct.
clearly in this verse, your expectation is Jesus healed you.
Right.
You should say thank you.
so
And if you're not meeting the expectation.
if you're looking for your TikTok sound bite, here it is.
Okay.
Grace isn't a reward.
That's a good
Let
one.
that one sit for a second.
Yeah.
Yeah, let that one sit for a second. Grace isn't a reward. If all you're doing is giving it to someone because they did something, then it's not grace. It's payment.
Right.
Right.
You've basically made them perform penance.
Yeah, exactly. Congratulations, you've rediscovered Catholicism.
Woohoo!
That one's already done. Try again.
Yeah, and I seem to remember a certain guy with a list of things and a door, and we kind of moved in a different direction from that.
Yeah, there was like a
Hmm.
hammer, like
Something.
something like theses or
number
something
of
like that.
theses, something like that.
Something.
Yeah, like
sounds made up.
like Martin Luther King or something like that. right?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, sounds made up.
Yeah, Martin Luther King Sr. maybe.
Senior.
Very senior. But I digress. This is actually like, for me, when I preach this passage, this is the point I tend to fall back on for forming the sermon, is the fact that we completely ignore the grace extended to the people who didn't do things the way Jesus would have expected or Jesus wanted. And it's not just like he didn't do things the way we would want them to do. Like Jesus was kind of expecting them to come back and say thank you.
Mhm.
And so
Right.
these 9 flat out did not follow Jesus in that way. They took their win and they left.
Yeah.
Right.
I see this often extended to things like feeding the homeless. That you have to feed in a way that they become productive. That you have to give in a
Mhm.
way that they're able to give back. And oftentimes I have seen this used to justify that. And it's fundamentally not what's happening here. Like,
Right.
That's
Yeah.
insane.
yeah, if anything, this is a fiduciary warning to churches that are preparing to do ministry, that only about 1 in 9 of the people that you serve are going to come back and help in any measurable way, and that's okay because Jesus didn't have a problem with it either.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of the whole story of grace, isn't it? Kind of wrapped up in a nutshell of you don't give grace for the return that you expect from it. You give grace because it's the right thing to do
Yeah.
when following Jesus's teachings.
I gotta tell you, my last congregation, one of the I'm gonna say leaders because the church had called him a pastor and it just didn't mesh. No other reason than he was very active in the community and he was a small business owner. You know what that gets you in certain circles.
Mm,
Everything we did, every action the church was meant to take, he always tried to parse it in terms of ROI. Well, what's our return on investment? If it's time, if it's resources, faith, what are we getting back in exchange for what we're investing in? And that just really rubbed me the wrong way because that isn't
mhm.
like our return on investment is the fact that we don't look for a return on investment.
Right.
People come to understand the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, the love of God, and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit from the fact that we don't ask them to give shit back.
Right.
Correct. You
I mean-
can't run a church based on an ROI.
Right. Well, and isn't that's somewhere in that big book of stuff we're supposed to follow, isn't it? Is not to do good for the expectation of return. I think we covered that one already.
I'm sure we have at this point. But that is a huge factor in operating a modern church. And I'll grant that operating a church in a capitalist hellscape requires dancing with the devil in that way. Like we do have to have
Right.
certain capitalist considerations if we want to, exist.
Yeah,
Right, yeah.
definitely.
But knowing where the line is between being a church and a reasonably fair nonprofit organization
Right.
is important. Because a church isn't meant to give only to those that we can use to grow our ministry, to grow our nonprofit.
Right.
And this, of course, leads to a discussion of what do we even consider a successful church or ministry to be.
Yeah.
For 50 to 100 years, America has been thinking that a successful church is one with a giant sanctuary, several different buildings, and a congregation measured in 4 digits or more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
You're not a successful church unless you're, Hillsong, New York.
Yeah.
You're not successful at all until you can boast, that your name's been on the big billboards.
Yeah.
Like,
and I'll tell you this story. I've told you this story off camera before, but I'll tell it to you on camera as well, for the sake of those listening along at home. Many years ago, I don't own this on my resume because, as you can imagine, it was a bit of a short thing. But I did a very brief stint as a composer in residence for a megachurch in Michigan. I won't name them for the sake of the fact that evangelical megachurches tend to be a bit litigious.
Yeah.
yeah.
I did
Crazy,
work
right?
as a composer in residence for them as an assistant to their music program for about a month and a half, which is the longest stint I've ever been present in an evangelical or evangelical adjacent megachurch. And
fun.
while we were there, while I was there, I immediately noticed that their music program consisted entirely of paid professionals.
Mm,
And I said, you've got a community here that numbers in the thousands. Are you telling me that you don't have any high school students who want to play for God? And I was told immediately, well, yeah, but they're not good enough. Like, we need to put our best show on for God. It's got to be all about that. And after several weeks of back and forth, I convinced him to hold some auditions. And only one person was willing to audition, which should have told me everything I needed to know. Like, in this
Right.
church of 1,000+ members, only one person was willing to take the offer to audition to join the church band. High school girl, she was a flautist, and she was pretty good, solid, high middle of the road, maybe a little better than average high school flautist. Hit her
Sure.
notes well. She was in tune. She wasn't like orchestra level technically proficient, but she rocked well enough.
Right.
And when her audition finished, the director looked her in the eyes and said, I really want to thank you for taking the time, but you're just not good enough to play for us. Maybe come back in a couple years when you've got your pro chops.
Yeah. Zero tact there, but
Tact aside, I came to realize that was the mentality. That was why the place felt so spiritually dead. Is because he was looking at this girl who wanted to do nothing more than participate in the life and ministry of the church, to be present in the house of God. And he was thinking, but what am I going to get out?
Yeah.
He wasn't thinking, how do I empower people? How do I connect with people? How do I offer grace?
right.
I always tend to balance this out with a story about my father, which I love to tell. And I know I've told you this one. My father used to be a choir director back in the day, and one of the congregants at his church back when I was probably like middle school, dude was so eager to sing in the choir, except for the fact that he was a natural monotone. He
Oh,
talked like this and sang like, could not hit another note. Only the one, literal one note wonder.
find a solid C.
Yeah, actually, I think it was a B flat. I don't remember, but so that's one of those situations where the music director, like, I'm fully expecting my dad to sit down and say, look, man, there are other ways to serve.
Right.
Like, I'll love you, but maybe choir ain't your thing. Like, what my dad did has stuck with me ever since, and it's in many ways been foundational for my approach to ministry. My dad sat down with them and said, all right, start talking. And then as he was talking, my dad at the piano just started pressing notes until he figured out what the note was. And then he said, all right,
Build around it.
here's the piece we're singing this Sunday. And then he circled every instance of that note on the sheet music. And he said, every time you get to a circle, blast it.
Aww.
That's pretty awesome,
Yeah.
honestly. Like that.
That's a good way to do it.
Yeah, that's some commitment to making sure that somebody feels included in service.
And those two stories right there, that's the difference between a prophet ministry and a grace ministry.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think I've told you this story, but Mal will remember as soon as I start telling it. I started to get sketch vibes from one of our previous churches. Again, we'll not name names. When we started talking about recording an album, I was, I was brought onto the team because I would rather you say this because it's gonna sound like me tooting my own horn.
Because you can sing
Yeah, because I sing fairly well, I think.
very well. Yes.
But I was brought on, in that understanding, and watched people not be brought on that were good, like you said, like maybe not, amazing, but definitely were good because they weren't good enough. So I mean, I saw that, and then I realized why when the worship pastor started talking about, our calling is to create a recording and make this church a mainstream worship production church. Kind of, Hillsong
And
elevation.
Right there is a key point that I think we don't discuss enough. Now, this formed the basis of the most recent episode of our hit video series and podcast, Back to Basics, which is celebrating its unprecedented 20th episode.
Hey!
Yay! Yeah, total hit podcast. Absolutely. Best out there.
Of course.
Tens of listens.
Exactly.
You just killed it.
We talked about how the mindset of productivity isn't a Christian ideology.
No, not
it's
at
a
all.
capitalist ideology.
Yeah.
Like church, setting aside the argument made back to basics, which is that people aren't meant to be constantly productive.
Yeah.
Ministry of the church, the action of God's kingdom on earth, is also not meant to be constantly productive in that way. That's not what it's about. We're not meant to be constantly making the best, doing the best, putting on the best show, trying to be attractive by the standards of the world. By the way, this is one of those little hypocrisies that I absolutely love that I have encountered from evangelical churches. The coexistence of the arguments, we need to put on the best show by the world standards so we can attract people, and also we need to be not of the world but beyond the world.
Yeah.
How do those two coexist?
Yeah.
They don't.
Well, and we have, specific experience with that. Another church we were a part of was very big on that. We need to be super professional, but don't be performing. But if you didn't perform enough, then you got talked to after service of you need to push out more. You need to pull back, or you had to be in this weird sweet spot that somehow evangelical churches have.
My favorite is you got yelled at for having your phone in your pocket.
Oh yeah, that was a whole debacle. I didn't take my phone out of my pocket before worship service started.
What? You could see his phone in his pocket, and because he didn't leave it with me and it was in his pocket, you could see it. He got in trouble.
Look, I know evangelical churches have a lot of hangups, but of the thing in your pocket that they can see, that's not the one I would have expected they'd be complaining about.
I mean, they complained about the other one too, but What? It's true.
Been there, done that, got the t-shirt.
Yeah. But I mean, I keep coming back to the point you made, and I know we've kind of gotten away from the specific verses that we chose today, but I think that this conversation is almost more important.
Yeah.
So often we as Christians, Christian adjacent people, those with beliefs within kind of this realm we explore.
Right.
We lose the idea that grace is central. Like it's all grace. It's not like it's not about what you do. It's about who already did it.
Yeah.
So and I think that we just I'm okay with getting away from what we plan when we can get into these conversations that I think a lot of people need to hear. And just say, I'll look dead in the camera, and if you're watching this or listening to it on a podcast, you're loved. Grace is for you. There is no disqualifier that has pushed you away from the grace of Jesus Christ. And I just want you to know that, you, the listener at home, and even the three of us.
Yeah.
Like, just because I forget sometimes that I don't have to be perfect.
Yeah. There is no good enough to be
Mhm.
part of the family of God. You
Mhm.
are. Like that's it. Full stop. Like, you're welcome, you're loved, you're appreciated, you're affirmed. This is who you are, you're here.
Yeah.
That's it. Full stop. We don't have qualifications or equivocations. All right, so now that the cross dissolve has completed its crossing and dissolving, for those of you watching on the internet,
Getting
anyway,
really good at that.
I know. It's like, one of these days I'm going to say that and I'm going to put in like a star wipe or something like that, just for good measure. But you've probably noticed, as per usual, we talk way too much. So
What? No way.
we are dropping the dissolve here. We're going to cut this episode in half, and we are going to end it for today here. And we are going to pick up next week with part 2 of our discussion, which is at least vaguely related to the Gospel of Luke.
Hey,
Little bit.
sometimes it gets to you, all right?
Yeah, it's like gardening. You plant a seed, and then before you know it, it's sprouted a tree, and that tree is ripping down the sidewall of your house. Like, it's just
Exactly.
You realize the tree was an ant the whole time.
and then it just picks you up and carries you to Isengard. Then there's a pipeweed, and somehow there's a volcano. And where did these eagles come from? Like,
Are you saying I look like a hobbit?
Yes.
Okay.
I wasn't gonna say it, but that's what Mallory's for.
He's furry enough. It's fine.
Yeah, it works. I guess does that make me No, it wouldn't make me Gandalf. I think it'd make me Radagast.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Weird, out there in the middle of nowhere, and occasionally covered in bird poop. Sounds about right.
Honestly, an apt description for the Discord server.
There we go.
I had to.
How
That
Sorry.
was perfect.
How did we do that? That was the most insane transition I've ever seen, and I love it.
We're just good at it. It's just a natural back and forth.
Full list of pluggables down below. I dropped this in the ending for the now the ending for the second part, but I'm going to mention this here as well because this will likely get to you before that. On October the 12th, 8:30 p.m. Eastern time, so that'll be Thursday 9:30 a.m. for any of you on the Japan side of things. There's going to be a live Bible study on the Discord server for First Reformed Church of New Brunswick. I'm going to be running that myself. It's kind of done in cooperation between Unfinished and First Reformed. Detoxifying Christianity. We're going to be ripping apart some key verses that people often take toxic positions from. You are welcome to join that. If you are in that time zone, if you're in this time zone, if you're in any time zone and happen to have that time free, come
We'll
join.
be there.
Yeah, we will.
Yeah. We'll all be there making fun of each other constantly and beating each other over the heads, which we definitely can do.
Like that.
Got
Exactly. I am not in any way sponsored for or by domestic violence, but sometimes when it involves hitting Tim in the head, I'm okay with
it.
Me too. I can't really be mad at it.
it. It is. As a husband myself, I can say we often earn it.
That's
fair.
That's
So,
fair.
Pluggables are down below. If you have time, check them out. Look for the other stuff we're doing, Discord server, video services, whole bunch of other stuff. Check it out. Otherwise, we will see you in part 2 of our unambiguously and unaccountably long episode on Luke. So we will see you next week. Take care, y'all.
Hey guys.
Bye.
Love you.